Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Tale of Knives Big Boy Everyday Carry Belt Pouch. Before I go any further, though, I got to let you know, this guy was sent to me by Tale of Knives. They actually reached out to me, said, hey Nick, would you be interested in checking out some of our stuff? I said, yeah, absolutely, sure, why not? Right, it's interesting, and, it's not really a segment I've done much work with in the past, but, I probably should give it a shot. And more importantly, though, Tale of Knives has been in the community for a while. They've been being kind. They seem to be having fun with it. And frankly, they've done a lot of innovation in this community, right? A lot of people have done a lot of cool things based on their work, and oftentimes giving them credit for inspiration, but sometimes not. But nonetheless, they've done some interesting work. But more importantly, I did send them my full disclaimer on my website. I told them I was going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly. It might be a gem, it might be junk. They did still send it along. Nonetheless, we do have to assume this is the very best quality controlled two pieces of leather stitched together ever, and I'm doing my best not to let that affect the nature or the quality of my review. Next thing, let's do some size comparisons. A little weird here, but one thing that is kind of worth doing initially is just showing you, here's a ruler. So we see this guy is coming in, looks to be about 6.5, maybe 7 inches across, thereabouts, and it is able to fit a variety of different things. Here it is against your Spyderco Delica, so we'll set it on top there, and this can actually fit a Delica quite nicely, although I don't know that that's what this is meant to do. Here it is against your Ontario Rat number 2, which again, come on, there, fits pretty nicely in there. Here it is against the Spyderco PM2, in this case wearing a set of fancy scales, but nonetheless, we see that this will actually fit a full PM2, which is not nothing. Then here it is against a Leatherman Wave, as well as with a flashlight. This is, they say on their website, this is able to fit flashlights up to 0.91 inches. So there is your size comparison, so I can go ahead and throw that in there, and now you have a sense of how the whole affair kind of works, right? So there is that. Next thing, well, who are the Tale of Knives folks? Well, they're crafts folks, right? They are based here out of the U.S., and they seem to be, well, cool. They seem they're great. They're interactive on Instagram. I see them about the community. No objections there whatsoever. And then the options of this guy, I believe this is going to be your dark brown leather here. This is, or maybe this is medium brown. Actually, I think it's medium. This has a black thread, as I say, pointing at black thread. That was self-evident. And this is using the belt loop style rather than the double clip style. So there you go. And the overall price of this guy, as it is situated right here, looking at their website right now, is about $98, right? So it's a good chunk of change, but supporting a local maker, why the heck not? So anyways, let's go ahead and jump into what I'm loving and what I'm not loving so much about this little guy, and we'll take it from there. First off, on the good side, the compatibility and fit is quite nice. This is the tool in many ways I decided to carry. This is a Leatherman Wave, and Leatherman is a company who makes very good multi-tools. I know that they've seen Tale of Knives work before. Don't ask me how, but nonetheless, they have always made some of my very favorite tools, despite making me a little bit frustrated of late. But nonetheless, this fits this extremely well, and more importantly, it fits it in a way that with this little opening thing, this is designed so that you put it on your belt, and then you can very easily, and this is not so easy on camera, but when it's literally attached to you, it's very easy to just stick a finger in there and get your Leatherman tool out there, or stick a finger here, get your flashlight out of there, right? This is very, very easy to access, and it holds pretty much everything that I wanted to try. When I used a thicker flashlight, let me see if I can grab an example. When I tried to do, for instance, a flashlight like this guy here, it got a little bit in the tight side, right? And this guy is coming in just over an inch, and you can kind of fit it in there. You can jam it in, but then the whole thing gets bumpy in the back, and it's a little bit harder for it to fit. I wouldn't recommend it for a full-size flashlight, but anything under that 0.91 inch seems to work fine. And the Wave is a pretty big multi-tool, right? So I imagine a number of other multi-tools would probably work well too. The other thing that's worth noting is that if you feel like it, you can actually generally, and there were some times where I did carry, for instance, a pen alongside this flashlight. You're going to scratch up your pen and your flashlight a little bit if you keep doing that, but it is an option that you absolutely have as you're doing that. That was a tactile turn pen, and this guy right here is an Ace Beam Rider RX. So anyways, but the fit on this guy is quite nice, and I found that it was able to accommodate a lot of the gear that I wanted to carry. It's obviously, by the way, very big for a general pen, right? You could do a Leatherman and smaller knife, or any kind of other multi-tool out there. But I like the fit very much. Next thing, the concept of it overall actually was better than I expected. Honestly, I didn't expect to like this category of product. Part of this is my own preconceptions, my own traumas, my own past. I just didn't think that I was the kind of person who could wear one of these guys and really who would enjoy it a lot. But actually, it turned out to be kind of nice, right? On days where I knew I was probably going to be needing a Leatherman and a flashlight, this was very easy just to kind of throw around the belt loop. And in this case, what I ended up doing is just literally taking my belt here and I would kind of pass it through here. And of course, it was on my body, so it makes a little bit more sense to do this, but then pass it through here. And then where I wore it was just about 4 o'clock, maybe 4:30 or so on my body, meaning if me looking straight ahead is known, it was kind of over there, so kind of over my my right hip. And it was very easy for me to reach back at a moment's notice and have a flashlight, or have a Leatherman. That actually worked quite well. And this little top flap here was nice because it actually offered a fair amount of comfort, right? Even if I wasn't wearing, let's say I was wearing a shirt over it, this kept it so that the Leatherman or whatever tool I'm carrying was not digging into my back as I was doing that, right? Because this generally would stick up a little bit above there. So you can grab it from the top, or you can grab it, push it from the bottom, which is what I ended up doing. But this really prevents any of the sharp edges of the tool or the pen or anything else you're carrying from attacking your skin, even if you're wearing this against your bare skin effectively. Well, okay, if you're wearing it so that the top is against your bare skin. In theory, you could wear it against your bare skin, but well, and actually, you wouldn't have pocket. Okay, moving on. So, nudists, you've got a great product for you, right? Oh, God. Nope, not going there. Moving on. So, this is, but this worked very well in my particular use case, which is not that one, but I guess it would work there, too. Moving on as quickly as I can. So that's good. I also very much appreciated the quality of manufacture here. I mean, to be sure, that this is not like high-end, oh my God, amazing stitching with that. There were little inconsistencies, but it works very, very, very well. And overall, it feels like a durable quality product. I put this guy through a lot more use than I generally would for an everyday, kind of tool, right? I really did try to wear it. I tried to break it, and I tried to get it to the point where I was very happy with it and felt like I could talk about it. And it's really not much worse for the wear. You can see that it definitely remembers the shape of my the multi-tool I carry in it. And it definitely felt like here, the clip of this particular flashlight, which I've also been carrying for review, this absolutely kind of, you can see that a little bit in there, but overall, I gotta say the stitching has been nice enough that everything is held together well. It feels very strong. It feels very durable. I have no real objection with the construction of this guy, too. And the leather itself is quite good, too. It's not, horribly thin. It's a nice thickness here, but it's also not oppressively thick. And the size of it is also nice, too, in that just against the skin, it's not like a massive leather, sitting there absorbing a bunch of heat energy and whatnot, right? This feels like a pretty good product in that way, and the overall quality here feels like something that I could actually use for years and years and years. I very much appreciate that, especially at this kind of a price point, almost $100. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. So I very much did appreciate the size there. And then finally, on the good side, I gotta say, and I kind of covered this a little bit earlier, but this ejection slot here, right? Being able to put my finger in here and just pop this guy out, that's brilliant. That's a beautiful thing. And it makes it much, much easier than, for instance, a lot of the pocket slips out there in the world. Because that's another way you could carry a tool like this, is by taking a little leather pocket slip, dropping it into your pocket, then you extract the tool. That way this isn't banging into whatever's in your pocket if your pocket's fragile. No, this just makes it very, very easy, pardon me, to just reach back one-handed and extract the multi-tool. And especially when the tool has one-hand ability too, kind of puts you in a much better position than I kind of expected it to. I figured this might be a little bit of a pain in the neck. Yes, the neck. Nice. You can see where I was going with that. But no, actually, this is very, very nice. So to me, all of that is the good. The accessibility to the tools is very, very good. And same thing over on this side here. The construction of it feels great. Absolutely. The size of it is very good, as is the positioning of it more generally. And it has very good compatibility with the tools that I ended up deciding to carry in it. On the bad side, part of this bad side stuff comes down to, well, maybe I should have chosen a different item, right? Because they do actually offer ones of these that are a little bit wider and also have a pen slot. Because that is something that, if I were ordering one of these again on my own, what I would probably end up ordering is something with the flashlight slot and then one additional little bit here as a pen slot, right? I think that would have been nice, and I think it would have given just a little bit more in the way of, everyday carryability. easily. And especially if you are a person who would be wearing this every day, well, it could be nice to have the same tools in the same place all the time. So having those pen slots, I could see being a very nice thing. They also have one that's got a little key holder, basically, that can fall down over here, which, isn't a thing that I would do. That would drive me absolutely crazy, having something jingling on my belt all day. I'm not a freaking cat. I don't need to chase songbirds off. But at the same time, it's a thing that you could do. But I did definitely miss the pen slot here, and I did find myself on occasion tossing a pen in beside the flashlight, and, it's not ideal, but you know what? It did work. Next thing, this is absolutely pricey, right? $100 for one of these guys. Well, to be fair, other big companies can apparently make them cheaper, right? Does that mean they should? Does that mean we should? Leatherwork is one of those things that I always recommend. And again, I'm throwing this under the bed because it is not cheap. But at the same time, leatherwork, like I said, is one of those things, and like I've said over and over again, where you, I think, should support local artists, right? You should find people who are, who are in the community, because leatherwork is a thing that can be done very effectively without hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of tooling and things like that. So this feels like a case where, yeah, you might as well spend a little bit of extra and support an actual artist in the community who's innovating in the product segment and doing cool kinds of things like that. So the price is definitely high, but personally, I don't think I'd have a problem paying it, because it's going directly to people who are actually making this their living and making it, well, it's their art. So to me, at least, I'm okay with the price, even though it is a little bit on the high side. Next thing, unfortunately, one thing I did notice is that once you put this guy, so let me load this guy up, and I'm going to load it up with, I think, gear that is, I think, well suited to it, and I won't even, here, I'll stick a pen from Hampton Inn in there. Sorry about that, Hampton Inn. But part of the problem with this guy is that it very, very quickly becomes pretty stiff, right? When you have your belt through here, this is actually sticking up. It doesn't flatten off along the back there. So you do feel it. It's not particularly uncomfortable because it is smooth leather up against your back, and it does kind of take a bit of a curve, but it absolutely is a thing that you feel, right? And it definitely does, well, you feel it, right? And so when you, and especially once you, if you try to put a flashlight in there that is bigger than it wants there to be, for instance, if I shove this guy in here, which, oh boy, JetBeam RRT01. In this case, you are absolutely feeling this lump here, right? And as a result, it also becomes a little bit weird to be wearing it, right? Because it kind of wants to bend, but it doesn't bend necessarily in exactly the place the contour of your body wants it to. When you have this guy overloaded, although it will certainly carry it, you definitely feel it. And even when it's just loaded, you do feel it on the back of you there. And you also have to be a little bit creative in terms of positioning. Tough to get two big flashlights out of there anyways. But nonetheless, you do also have to be a little bit creative in terms of positioning. For me, I ended up finding out that the way to wear this guy on the days that I did wear it is to basically put my belt through my pants most of the way, then put one of the sides through, then put put one of my belt loops here. So basically with the belt coming through here, go through a belt loop and then come to the other side. That's what made this guy work. That's the positioning that made it seem okay. That would probably be unique to every one of you all. If you have a bigger waist, bigger gap between belt loops, then maybe it's not going to be a thing, right? But I got small hands. I don't know. I got a normal sized torso, I guess. There you go. You have another piece of information about Nick. Anyways, normal torso. Someone's writing down creepily. Anyways, so for me at least, I did end up having to wear it a little bit strangely, right? It wasn't something I could just kind of keep on the belt necessarily, unless I kept the belt in the pants, which you can do too, but you end up taking it on and off every day. So it's kind of a thing. And the other thing I'll say is that with a relatively thick belt here, and this is a relatively thick belt, and the 1.5 inch, it does take a little doing to pull it through there, right? This is not just a leisurely, and given I'm wearing a thicker belt than normal, but I also think it's very good to wear a thick belt, right? Especially if you're an EDC person and you got a lot of heavy stuff in your pockets, it's a good idea to, carry a belt that's worth a damn. But anyways, you do definitely have to work a little bit there, and if your belt is longer than the 1.5 inch, you're going to have a bad time. So that is definitely a concern. The final thing that I'm going to bring up here, and this is entirely subjective, you're welcome to call this out, this is not necessarily the peak of fashion. To the extent where my loving wife, if I left the house with this on, I'd get, really? Really? It's very much, it's got a dad vibe to it. I'm going to be honest with you here. I'm not a dad, can't claim it, just have the jokes. But nonetheless, it definitely does have a certain vibe to it, right? I am sure that many of the people out there might wear this and still use the term gray men, when in fact they are about as gray as a road flare, right? This very clearly identifies you as an everyday carry geek. If you have this guy on over your shirt, or frankly even under it, if anybody clocks it, like, oh, EDC nerd. And to me, it's like, hey, my people. But for other people, it may not necessarily be. So fashion-wise, I can't say that this is going to light the world on fire. I don't particularly expect that Paris Fashion Week next year is going to have a tail and knives person, walk in. But, hey, by God, if utility belts come back in style, you are going to be good to go. So to me, that was a little bit rough, right? This has a very specific shall we say, demographic. And if you don't find yourself associating with that fashion, there is definitely a market. And I did definitely see some people checking me out. And that, by the way, I am not a person who merits checking out in any other regard with this. So it is definitely a thing that says a thing about you. But anyways, to me, all of that is the bad. Is that fashion? This is very much not. It definitely does have a tendency to wear a little bit weirdly, depending on how you are and how it fits your body. It may end up feeling, well, you'll be feeling it regardless, but it may end up having to do things like putting a belt loop in between. Especially if you have it overloaded a little bit, it has a little tendency to become bulbous and to kind of stand up. Like it wants to do something like this if your belt is... So that can be a little bit frustrating, and it is very expensive, but I also, well, not very expensive. I mean, it's $100. That's good and pricey, but you're supporting a local artisan. I can... By the way, they're not local to me, but they're local to the States. But anyways, I can live with that, and yeah, there you go. And I probably wanted one with the pen, but I just didn't ask for it because I didn't think I'd want one of these guys at all. So final conclusion, look, this is a thing that you probably already know whether you would wear, right? In my case, this isn't going to be an everyday companion for me. That's not really a judgment of the product so much as a judgment of who I am, how I dress, and the kinds of situations in which I find myself. Very rarely do I need access to a Leatherman on my belt at all times. If I'm around the house, if I'm doing work around the house, yes, I throw this guy on there. That way I've got it, but in most of my life, it's fine to just have one in my backpack or something like that, right? Similarly with a flashlight. You don't necessarily, if you have one all the time, it's a beautiful thing, but for a lot of people, this isn't going to make sense. And in fact, this whole product category isn't going to make sense because, well, you may not carry these tools all the time. Or if you do, you may not need just as quick access to them. But if you do, if you're looking at this and going, that would be convenient, right? To have a pen, some multi-tool, the flashlight, maybe some keys on there. If you are a person who looks at this and goes, wait a second, if I get that, I am like halfway to a Batman utility belt. And by God, this is a really nice product. And in fact, I would say this particular iteration of it is probably my favorite of the ones that I've handled. I've gone to a bunch of shows, and very often you'll get people who are doing things like this, right? And there are no shortage of little kinds of leather slips and things like that exist, and they're fine, they're great, they work, but at the same time, this to me feels like it is better thought out. And to me, that kind of is the biggest thing that drew me to the tail and knives stuff, is it really feels like they're thinking very hard about how optimally to do this, right? About the little details, right? Things like, for instance, a little bit of stitching right here to reinforce this area because you're going to be interacting with it a bunch, right? This little top part here, which will mean that no matter your choice of clothing or yeah, anyways, moving on. You don't really have to worry about this scraping up against you. Just the overall approach here is, profoundly well thought out. And so to me, I think this is perhaps the very best of this kind of, at least that I've handled. I don't want to necessarily. This is probably the very best of this kind of thing, right? All of the work that I've seen from them, and this being the one I've spent most time with, I am quite impressed with. And so if this is a thing that you're interested in, I would really recommend you check out the tail and knives here. This particular guy, the big boy, is very specific, but they have a bunch of other different variants. Some are more expensive, some are cheaper. It looks like when you go up to the pen version and everything, you can end up with like $150 or something with the little key thing in case you want to chase off songbirds, things like that. But nonetheless, you got all kinds of different options there. But this, to me, it's a cool thing. I think it's well done. It's not something I'm going to use every day. If you go out in public and you see, well, see one of these guys on, it may be me, but nonetheless, at the very least, it's an EDC person, but it may not be something I'll wear every day, but at the same time, it's a nice little thing, and I can definitely see this being something that is really interesting to people who really need these tools at quick access at all different points of their lives, and so, in that way, I think this is a tale that you may end up wanting to tell. So anyways, hope this has been interesting. 19 minutes. Wow, this review was a big boy. Okay, anyways, hope this has been interesting to you. Have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.